Praise be Jesus Christ. This week, I wanted to answer the question that I've been asked many times by many people of different ages, different social groups, different level of commitment to the Catholic Church. What would be the prayer type or kind that I would recommend to them? I think it's probably one of the most important prayers that we can ask in this life, especially as people who have a certain knowledge of God or are aware that there is an existence of God and that we are called to form a relationship with Him. Because of course, prayer is access to God. It's what we simply call a conversation with God. What do I know about prayer? That's a good question too, I guess, that I can ask myself. You can ask yourself. I would say that I've had 28 years of experience. The first instance I can recall something about prayer that was formally said to me was probably when I was 7, preparing to First Communion, and someone said to us, I don't remember who it was, said, once you receive communion, try to make a little conversation with Jesus in the communion, in the Eucharist. And of course, prayer is just that. It's a conversation with God, with Jesus. And it can be vocal, it can be silent, it can be from the heart, it can be on your mind. And, I've had all of those experiences in my life. I've always preferred the prayer in silence in my heart or in my mind. I couldn't really distinguish it. But I preferred it because I didn't ever want anybody to know that I'm praying. So that was something like very private, And I remember once my best friend here in Poland asking me, because we went to church together and I was kind of quiet and thinking, and he wanted to like mumble something under his nose, and he said like, so how do you know that God hears your prayer? And I said, I don't know. I just believe he does, and it feels like I'm not talking to myself. And so, we all had our experiences of prayer, or maybe we haven't. And if you haven't, then stay tuned because I will continue talking about it. I think prayer has always been some kind of a mystery, It's kind of obvious that people in church pray, but I remember it was never said explicitly that, by being at Mass, we are actually praying. I don't remember that. I don't recall it. We would just go to Mass and participate at Mass. We would go to the Rosary, we say the Rosary, we would go to the Stations of the Cross, say the Stations of the Cross, and then find some kind of a booklet with prayers, say those prayers. Somebody then along the way would mention something about the Holy Scapular, the brown scapular, so people wanted to enroll in that. But I don't remember too much talk about, how should I pray? Especially outside of Mass. Like, I think that's many people's experience. I know that for sure because many people over the years have come and asked, like, how do I pray? And even when I prayed, I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't know if I was supposed to sit or stand or kneel, how long it's supposed to be. One could get a headache just thinking about that. And what about the 21st century man? How should the 21st century person pray and why? I think that's really the question that I would like to answer. Not fully in this video, but kind of slowly, one step at a time. Some people in our time say that we should go back to Lectio Divina and just focus on that. Stay in the scriptures, practice the meditation, think about it, place yourself there. Other people say that we should only go to adorations with music, The more charismatic that it is, the better. That we should fall asleep in the Holy Spirit and we should wake up in the Holy Spirit, and we should fall back to sleep in the Holy Spirit, and we should wake up in the Holy Spirit again, and then we should have a prayer full of emotions, feelings, crying. Others say no feelings, desert. That's the best kind of prayer. You should not feel anything. You should be in a dark chapel and just be quiet. And others say you should bring a book. Others say you should bring a notebook. Other people will say, don't bring anything. Just sit there and look at Jesus, or stay at home and just be in quiet. So all of these opinions in 21st century, and the longer we get, the farther in age of 21st century, the more opinions we get. Everybody seems to be a specialist on prayer, and I think we priests should be specialists on prayer. And are we? So what would be the type of prayer that I would recommend? And I think it's good to kind of emphasize that my experience is not, what you would call a book experience, that I've only read about it. Of course, I've read about it because, as I was practicing my prayer, I was growing in knowledge of myself, and I began to notice different things happening. And then I began to read books about prayer and see that those things that were happening to me actually have names, and and there are actually patterns in prayer that every person has, and the ability to experience certain patterns. And there are many things that can be similar, and then many things that can be different. But mostly what I try to communicate to you is what I've experienced, and I've also seen in the lives of the people that have approached me, or I've entered their life somehow by being their priest or being the spiritual director, and then really focus on good fruit that actually came out of that prayer method, or just a way of praying, or just praying in general. Because it's super important to focus on the fruit. Is there fruit of prayer? Is there something actually changing in me? Can I actually say that, back then, that's how I was and that's how I was acting, and now maybe I'm acting in the same way, but I already feel that I don't like to be that way. I already feel more regret about the way I am. I begin to feel a desire to change, and that's all fruit of good prayer, and that's what I really want to emphasize here. One of the things that I wanted to mention that I see and I can compare it with when it comes to prayer is actually the attention to our body in the 21st century. I think we all can say that, we are crazy in general, and it's not only, in the West, in the United States and, Western Europe, because right now here in Poland, I can see it to the same degree, really. If you only have money or some interest in it, not a problem. So you can, you go to all kinds of different gyms. You have all these fitness gurus. You have, all kinds of ways of training your body, and you have 1,000 different types of diets, and we can be extremely focused and disciplined when it comes to that. There are people who will buy a certain food and make a certain meal every single day, and they are actually order all of their lives, all of their activities, even the kind of friends they have and the type of vacations they'll take, everything around that fitness lifestyle, so they can look good, so they can feel good, so they can look younger, so they can feel more energetic, happy, etc., 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 like as if all of those things actually came from our bodies. That being said, it's just a fact that we can be extremely sacrificial when it comes to our body, our physical appearance. But not necessarily that. Let me just move my notes a little bit. Not necessarily when it comes to prayer. When it comes to prayer, oftentimes when somebody hears a challenge, immediately gets a little fussy, because I would like to have something easier, something maybe, on a screen. Watch a video on YouTube and just be done with it. That was a good prayer. Or take a walk and say like, oh yeah, I was just looking at the trees, for 5-10 minutes and just like the whole universe appeared to me, and that's a good prayer. So we tend to, when it comes to the spiritual life, we have that tendency, I think, just kind of take it easy, or think that it's supposed to be easier than those physical fitness exercises, diets, strict regime of our life. Well, just to say it, I think for the 21st century man, in order for our prayer to account for something, it needs to cost us something. I'm not talking about money. It's free of charge, and it's available everywhere. But one has to do some work in order to reap the fruit, in order to get the benefit. And not only that, I mean, the greatest benefit is growing in self-knowledge, which brings us to growth in humility, hopefully. We examine that always, we pay attention to our prayer. And then growing in relationship with God, and then in union with God. We're supposed to become Christ-like or God-like, but not in a sense of like goddess or God of, looking beautifully like Greek gods, but in a sense of our God. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. The beauty, the humility, goodness, all those good things. And so, yeah, for the 21st century man and woman, a good prayer is prayer that costs you some effort. Not a little bit. Because to say, I mean, in the beginning we can say a little bit, but it really makes me want to cry, because we can spend hours focusing on our diet, doing our exercises, but when it comes to prayer, we have to begin with like those 5-10 minutes of what? Well, I think that's something that I'm going to present more in the next video. But what it really is about is 21st century men and women. A human being really needs time of quiet. I know, I have not discovered America here. And yet, it is so difficult for us to attain. Even here, I live in a rectory. Even here, sometimes when I need time to think, to pray, because during the coronavirus crisis we couldn't go to church, or it was like not advisable to go and spend a lot of time there. There were people coming in, walking out. Even here it was difficult to find time quiet to pray, peaceful time. Like we all wanted once in a while. Some people wanted more, others needed once in a while. And yet we know that once we have that time, we actually rest. And in silence, God speaks to us, and we can speak to Him, and we can rest. And so the first thing that I wanted to say to men and women of the 21st century, what kind of prayer would I recommend? I would recommend sometime every single day, Monday through Saturday, of prayer in quiet. Because we are so used to, if you are from a family like I am, so used to going to church on Sunday. And that's it. Apart from that, we didn't talk too much about God, prayer, this, that, the other. And so for me to start some kind of a routine of prayer outside of Sunday Mass was already a challenge. And it will be for those who have not developed that habit. But I promise you, there will be benefits. You will see them quickly. Actually, you will see them before next video. So within a week from this moment, if you practice, if you either wake up a little bit earlier to spend 10-15 minutes just placing yourself in quiet, thinking about your relationship with God, thinking about your relationship with other people, thinking about your actions, and that's it. Every single day, whether you wake up earlier or you set up an alarm in the middle of the day and say like, no matter what, I have to do it. Because if you don't, then there will be no fruit. It's not going to be magic. You have to put in order to get out or take out. And so spend the time, set up an alarm, whatever you need to do. And then next week we'll talk more about challenges when it comes to prayer, but also the great benefits. I'll talk about some examples of great people who have, accepted that prayer type and begin to exercise it, and it became a part of their life. How many good things have happened. And so for the time being, of course, if you have any comments, send me an email. And for the time being, may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. God bless. Pray well.